All right, Alexander, let's talk about Kamala Harris and a couple of things to discuss with the vice president. And the first thing is she's in Southeast Asia. She's going to eventually end up in Vietnam to announce America is back. This is her America is back tour, by the way, and she'll be in Vietnam to announce to all the Vietnamese people that America is back. We've done a video on this, and it was pretty hilarious that's their slogan. That's what they're going with as she embarks on this trip to Southeast Asia. Right now, she is in Singapore, I believe. Yes, she is in Singapore, and she's really digging into the Chinese. She gave a speech, and she really railed against the Chinese and the fact that the Chinese are, how dare the Chinese sail around the South China Sea. She says it's coercion and intimidation, and you'll probably get into more of that. Interesting speech to give at a very interesting time, given what's happened to Afghanistan once again. I don't know if it's the best time to start going after China at this moment in time. Maybe you should clean up the mess that you've made elsewhere and then go after China. I don't know, just a thought. And of course, as she was embarking on this trip, the reporters asked her about Afghanistan because she's kind of been AWOL. She's disappeared, to be honest, except for her statement. Supposedly, she gave a statement where she says, I'm not going to accept any of this SH you-know-what when referring to Biden. But when she was asked about Afghanistan, Alexander, her response was laughter. Laughter. Her defense mechanism when she doesn't know how to respond to things and when she's scared, maybe when she's angry, it's definitely her defense mechanism. But her response when asked about Afghanistan and the evacuation process and the entire debacle there was laughter. The vice president burst into laughter when a reporter asked her about Afghanistan. So Alexander, Kamala Harris, laughing about the Afghanistan evacuation. It's not really a laughing matter. And of course, her Southeast Asia, America is back tour. What's going on here?
Well, first of all, let's just talk about the fact that she shouldn't be on this tour at all. You're absolutely right. There is a crisis in the United States. There is a crisis in Afghanistan. There's American citizens whose lives are at risk. There's been a evacuation from Kabul airport, which is not going well. We have American troops surrounded on all sides by anti-American Afghan militia. They control all the commanding heights around the airport. They control all the major built-up areas around there. They could quite easily, if they wanted to, set up mortar bombs and heavy caliber machine guns, and this could turn from a political disaster and an evacuation disaster into a military debacle as well. So this is an extremely dangerous time for the United States, an extremely serious time for the United States. The vice president needs to be there in Washington at her post, supporting the president, making the important decisions that need to be made. And given that, as I said, traditionally in recent years, it is the vice president who has assumed the role of crisis manager, logically, she should not be in Singapore or Vietnam. She should be in Kabul. I am not saying that, visiting Singapore and Vietnam at this time is not important. I'm not saying that these countries don't matter. What I am saying is, at this precise moment in time, something has happened in Afghanistan which is far bigger, far more important, far more serious for the American people, and the vice president should be there. She should not be hiding in places like Singapore and Vietnam and Saigon. And there's already been some comments made, and entirely justified and appropriate comments, that rather than visiting Kabul, where the reenactment of Saigon 1975 is taking place, she prefers to hide in the actual original Saigon in Vietnam. I've already seen those comments. So, I mean, it's already a huge mistake to go there.
Such a bad look. I'm so glad you pointed it out. Such a bad look. The worst communications department in the White House in history. Sorry, the worst.
Absolutely. Now, the second thing is, I mean, this extraordinary belligerent, and I use that word, carefully, this extraordinarily belligerent, anti-Chinese, strong language that she makes in Singapore. If she knew anything at all about Singapore, she would know that Singapore is dominated by the Chinese business community in Singapore. I'm talking about the Singaporean Chinese business community. It's got very, very close economic links with China. The political leadership in Singapore has been going out of its way to maintain good relations with China, and a large proportion of the population is Chinese. Now, it is probably not the place, therefore, to start making strong comments about China. That will not be welcome in Singapore. Diplomatically, that was already, in my opinion, a bad start. But greater than anything else, we've had this appalling pictures of Kamala Harris meeting the reporters, laughing, looking, to my eyes, and I'm going to say this straightforwardly, as if she was extraordinarily pleased with herself, preening, in fact, even as her country, the United States, is being humiliated in Afghanistan. And I mean, it's not just that she has, it's just wholly inappropriate to laugh anyway. I mean, as many people have been saying, her laugh, and you can do something about controlling your laugh and things like that. Her laugh anyway is unattractive, and it just came across horribly, absolutely terribly, as if she wasn't taking this situation seriously, and as if she is extremely pleased with herself in general. And I think that actually, partly, it is defensive, exactly as you said, she's very insecure about some things. But I'm going to say something else. I think she is pleased with herself. And I think she's pleased with herself, firstly, because she's away from Washington and away from Kabul and has escaped the debacle, if you like. But also, and this is, I think, something we need to discuss in this programme, and which follows on from one of our previous programmes, which we've just made, I think she senses that things in Washington are going her way politically. And I think she feels that the president himself is on the ropes. And I think that she thinks that things are working out in a way when she will shortly be taking over. And there was an article that I sent you from the Daily Telegraph, which I found really, really startling, precisely because it said all the things we've been saying for weeks, but it said so in absolutely unambiguous and straightforward ways. And I'm sure she's fully informed about all that's going on in Washington. And she looked to me very much like someone who feels that, she's about to be the person in charge.
Yeah, the Daily Telegraph, the Washington elite have turned on Biden. Watch out for the Harris presidency. Incredible stuff.
Absolutely. And can I just say, the journalist who wrote it, Dominic Green, is a very well-connected, very well-established, utterly mainstream journalist. And of course, the Daily Telegraph is a mainstream newspaper, very well connected, very well informed about the situation in Washington. He is a deputy foreign affairs editor at The Spectator, which is Britain's most important political affairs magazine, one which Boris Johnson himself edited at one time, and who is probably, Dominic Green, probably it has inside knowledge about what's going on both within the British government and within the American government also. And it was startling to read, because what he basically says is that Biden has lost the support of the deep state. He calls it the blob in this article. This is a phrase that Obama and his acolytes came up with when Obama was president. So he's lost the support of the deep state, and he's discredited himself. And there's whispers now across the media about Biden's infirmities, and that the way is now being prepared for Kamala Harris to take over. All the things that we've been saying on the Duran for weeks and months, and we now see them appearing in the mainstream media, at least in Britain.
Yeah, and our viewers have been saying this as well for the months. All of us, the entire community has been foreshadowing this. Let's see if it comes to pass. But I agree with you. It's it is an all hands on deck moment for the United States, both practically speaking, technically, process wise. All hands should be there to try and get the American citizens and all the foreign citizens who are stuck in Afghanistan out, but also PR and media wise. I mean, it doesn't take a media expert or specialist, a PR genius to sit down with Harris and with Biden, the entire White House team, and say, look, this is not the best time to go traveling. I mean, this is such common sense, but she's traveling because of what you said. There's no doubt about it. She wants to leave Biden alone and isolated, and this trip is for her a way to accomplish that, to distance herself from what's about to come to pass with Joe Biden. So that's why she's pretty cool about the trip. I mean, you saw her laughing. She doesn't want to talk about Afghanistan. She doesn't want to talk about it. And she's going to go to Southeast Asia. And yeah, I think she's feeling confident that when she comes back to the U.S., her position will be strengthened, and eventually she'll become the president. I think that's probably what her and her team are calculating, and the people who have put her in that position.
I completely agree. Now, can I just say something? A strong president, one in charge of his administration, would not have allowed Kamala Harris to go to Southeast Asia on this trip. A strong president would have said to the entire team, right, we're all working together. These are your assigned tasks. Kamala, you go to Kabul. Blinken, you hit the phones. Jake, you talk to all the security people in the neighboring countries. General Austin, well, you're in charge. You work with Kamala to get our people out. That's what a strong executive does. He brings them all together. He holds a cabinet meeting. He carries out, he gives instructions, clear instructions, and takes a grip, takes control of the situation. He certainly doesn't allow the vice president to go absent, hiding in Saigon, when, as I said, we have a reenactment of Saigon in Kabul airport. He certainly doesn't allow that to happen. And the fact that it is happening in that way shows that this president has no grip. He has no control over his own administration. And when that actually happens, then in any political system, and the United States is no different from any other, then that president's days are politically numbered, because a president who cannot exert control, who cannot establish his authority over his administration, is a president who is going to invite plotting against him. And that's obviously what's taking place.
Yeah, I think we all need to pause for a second and just think about the optics of all of this. The vice president is leaving the White House at a time of absolute crisis to go on an America's back tour to Vietnam, to Saigon, while at the same time you have just had a Saigon moment in Afghanistan, down to even the same helicopters in the photos that we saw. The optics are just so bad on this. Yeah. But she's been allowed to do it. And plus, and to make it even worse, Alexander, she's opening up another front against the Chinese, where I'm saying, okay, you want to open up a front against the Chinese? No problem. Go ahead. But maybe it's not exactly the best time to be doing that.
Absolutely. Completely agree. I mean, especially if you're going to need the help of the Chinese, as you may very well do, in order to get your people out of Afghanistan, because the Chinese now have influence in Afghanistan, which the United States has lost, because that's the way the cards have fallen, and it's because the way the cards have been played. And when you talk about optics, I mean, here you have the vice president not only going absent in Southeast Asia, but laughing when she's asked questions about the situation in Afghanistan, giving all the impression that she's having a wonderful time, that she's really enjoying herself, that she's really pleased with herself at a time when her nation and her country is being humiliated. If you want to understand why the American people have never warmed to Kamala Harris. This image really says it all. It gives the clearest possible impression of why this vice president is so unpopular. I was reading in Washington Examiner, admittedly a pro-Republican news magazine, but also I would say one that's very hostile to Donald Trump and which supported Biden during the the election battles after the election. They say that Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, and who can disagree?
Yeah, but to be quite honest, she was literally, when the whole Afghanistan thing was going down, she disappeared. I mean, she really did.
Yeah.
It was incredible to watch. She should have been by Biden's side during every single media appearance that he gave. Granted, he didn't give many, but she should have been right by his side. I think she was during one of them, during the last one. She was actually there, her and Blinken. But aside from that, she was AWOL. She should have been speaking to the press as well. She should have been in Kabul. There were so many things that that the entire White House staff could have done, and they could have been coordinated and showing that they had a grip on things. But the exact opposite has happened. Demoralization. This is chaos, demoralization. They're unorganized, and it's interesting to see the media start really speaking about Kamala as president. It's very, very telling that all of this is coming out now as well.
Absolutely. Now, can I just add about the diplomatic mission itself? I mean, the United States has been working incredibly hard for about the last year to try to win over Vietnam to this deal with China. And Vietnam has a complicated history with China. I mean, they've had centuries of conflict. They've also been times when they've been very friendly and very close, but there've also been times when they've been very tense. And of course, they actually fought a very, very fierce and bloody border war with each other in 1979. So, there's a lot going on in Vietnam, but the Vietnamese have been extremely difficult to get on board. They've got the strongest military in Southeast Asia by far, but at the same time, they don't really feel that they want to get involved in this struggle between the United States and China, partly because they're calculating long term. They're saying China will be there always. We don't know how strong the United States is going to be, how long its commitment to this region is going to last. Well, what do? You arrange this fiasco in Kabul, this disaster in Afghanistan, and then you send to Vietnam the vice president with this disastrous slogan, America is back, with all that means for the Vietnamese. And what are the Vietnamese going to conclude? Are they going to conclude that this is a strong, reliable ally that they might be, taking on if they team up with the United States? Or are they going to say to themselves, this is an absolute farce run by people who are deeply unserious? Well, it's no guess that they're going to think the second, because sending Kamala Harris to Vietnam at this time, in this way, with her laughing to reporters, making these inane slogans, and failing to stand by her country at this critical time, is going to go down like a lead balloon in Hanoi, in Vietnam, where she will soon be. So, the misjudgments here are terrible. And this is all supposed to be rallying the Pacific nations against China. The Chinese, you go to their media, they're laughing. They're actually gloating about the way in which the United States is mismanaging this whole thing.
Yeah, all of this is not helping the situation at all. And it's not going to get better if Kamala Harris does enter the Oval Office. If this does come to pass, things are not going to get better, especially from a foreign policy perspective and domestic policy as well. But we're mostly geopolitical channel, and a Kamala presidency, I don't think it's going to improve on the geopolitical situation at all. Anyway.
It's going to make it worse. I mean, I've no doubt about it. I mean, the one of the things is, I mean, you know, Joe Biden, at least people around the world know him reasonably well. And I mean, he's not somebody who arouses very strong feelings. But somebody like Kamala Harris, I mean, trying to work with world leaders, trying to speak to Xi Jinping, I mean, really, I mean, one just shudders, frankly, what that's going to be like. I mean, you know, I mean, the person who will annoy the allies and provoke the enemies. I mean, that's what we're going to see.
Okay. We'll leave it there. TheDuran.locals.com. Check us out there. And ODYSEE, BitChute, Rumble, and Super U. And of course, Alexander the Duran Shop. 10% off when you use the code REALNEWS.
And here we are with my mug with the flag of the United States. A great nation, despite everything, despite what it's what's being done to it.
We'll both drink to that. Great nation,
We will,
the United States. Yeah. I agree, and it will get through this.
Oh, of course it will.
I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Take care, everybody.